Hello, and welcome to episode 14 of the We Get to Do This pod. This week, we have Ahna Mikl on. Ahna is a certified regenerative health specialist. She's a professionally trained doula, clinical iridologist, and detox specialist. She is also the owner of Regenerative Birth and Beyond. This week, I had the pleasure of interviewing her, and we covered quite a few topics, a lot relating to women's health, the state of our soil health and nutrition, um, and so much more. This is truly one that I don't think you want to miss. Anna and I are both very passionate about root cause healing and removing blockages in the body in order to have true healing. Thanks for being here and listening, and let us know what you think. All right, welcome everyone. Today we have my friend Ahna on the podcast. Thanks for coming on, Ahna. It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you.
So Ahna and I actually go back to elementary school. We both lived in Chisago Lakes for a bit and met there. And then you moved away for high school. So we didn't graduate high school together. And kind of like, I feel like peripherally followed each other for a while until a couple years ago when you reached out and we reconnected and now have been friends and colleagues, which has been very exciting. I feel like sharing our passion for health and really getting to the root cause of what's going on in people's bodies and just really connecting over that. And I feel like I've learned so much from you, and it's been so much fun watching your journey over these last couple of years and kind of as things have evolved. And I was excited to have you on today because you have your own practice and business, and I just love the mission and vision that you stand for. And I feel like you have a wealth of knowledge that I just feel like our listeners needed to hear what you have to say. So would love to hear a little bit more about you and what you do. And
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm just I love that you two are doing this podcast, and I'm super honored that you asked me to join. Um so I'm also based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, for those of you listening. And what really got me into like my work, and also just what I do now to support women and help women, was my own healing journey. And so currently I'm a certified regenerative health practitioner. I'm a detox specialist and also a birth doula, recently a birth doula, and have really niched down into women's health and the healing of the womb space, because this is a space in women that is often, right, we're not really educated on it, and it's not talked about enough, when that really is actually most oftentimes part of the core of what's going on when us women are experiencing hormonal imbalances, when we're experiencing just poor gut health and all of the other things that we're told are just normal. And so what got me into this space of root cause healing and really just trying to help people get the body to a space where it can heal, again, was like my own journey that kind of like slapped me across the face and forced me to look at my own health. And just, to kind of share super briefly a little bit about my background, when ever since I was a young girl, I struggled with IBS. And I know that many, many, many people, not just women, right? So many people are dealing with digestive distress. And so I will talk a lot about gut health and just like the gut injury that many of us are experiencing in the world today. So I can definitely go into that later. But yeah, from a very young age, dealt with IBS, gas, bloating, constipation, chronic lower back pain, hair loss, hormonal imbalances, and the thing that really hurt me the most was my severe periods. And for any women listening, if you've had really severe pain, and have had irregular periods or missing periods, or just your cycle has not been something that's been pleasant, I can completely relate. And was put on birth control at the age of 14 to basically, right, put a band-aid over what the underlying thing was. And I was on birth control a lot of my life. And I realize now, being off of birth control, what birth control was doing to my body, right? It was suppressing so much. Not only was it a band-aid for a lot of my health symptoms, but it made me feel dull, right? It made me lose all of my sex drive. It made me feel depressed. Um, there was just there's a lot to that I can even go into later on as well. But being on birth control for a long period of time and then going off of it, I went off of it about 5 or so years ago. And when I went off of it, that's when my health really started to kind of spiral. I started to get a ton of hair loss, and inflammation went crazy. And, as a woman, when you start losing your hair, you really start to freak out, or at least I know I did. And I just remember staring in the mirror and just thinking, well, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like I would buy all these random shampoos, and I would just, be doing all this research to try to figure out, how do I grow my hair back? Why am I losing it? And I could never really get to the bottom of it. And my severe periods were back. Like, I was passing out. And I remember going the Western medicine route. And I started, I was just begging for answers and solutions. Like, why is this happening to me? I was in my 20s and I was supposedly healthy, right? I was apparently doing all the right things, working out and, eating what I thought was healthy at the time. And they just kept pointing me back to birth control. So that's when I really started to look into Chinese medicine. I started to get acupuncture. I started to, go to the chiropractor more regularly. I started to really take my health into my own hands. And I love the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, because I believe this is just so the case for all of us, right? As we live this life, and we're constantly, right? Constantly learning lessons, constantly learning new things, and always have to be open to new things and new perspectives. Um, and when detoxification came across my path, this is when my entire world changed. When I started to learn about soil health and truly the foods that decrease inflammation in the body, and learned, why we have to get pesticides out, why we have to get heavy metals out. I started learning about parasites in the body, right? All of these things that are not often talked about, especially not, in the hospital system. I It really opened my eyes, and so I decided to give it a shot. I started to cleanse my body, and I kid you not, within 60 days I started having symptoms reverse that I'd struggled with for years. And this was kind of like a light bulb moment for me. I was like, this is what's missing. Like, this is what this is the work that I'm supposed to teach people. Like, there is a way, right? We don't just have to go back to birth control to regulate our hormones and not have painful periods. Like, there's a way to actually do this naturally. And that was really the very, very start of my true healing journey, when I started to get all of the gunk out of the body that was putting roadblocks in my healing. And from there, a lot of things transpired. I was on that journey. I was still working my corporate job at that time, but I was going back to school for regenerative detox to learn how to teach this to women. And And so I ended up working my corporate job and also doing, regenerative detox. I was doing it, I was working probably 60 hours a week. Um, and when I decided, okay, I think it's time for me to let my corporate job go, um, then another layer of deeper healing kind of started to happen. And I started to recognize that, okay, healing's not just about eating the right foods and exercising, there's a huge emotional component to it. And it's about the way we live our lives. And if we're not living in our truth and we're not happy with what we're doing, right, or we're not in alignment with our soul's purpose, we will plateau and we won't continue to get better. And we have to address the underlying emotions, which are usually the root cause of almost everything. And so when I quit corporate, I started to, right, question my worth. Like, I was living so in my masculine my whole life that when things started to slow down and I didn't have someone telling me, Anna, you're doing a good job, right? And I didn't have a thriving business right off the bat, it was like a big wake up call for me. And I started to,
You and I are both firstborns too, and I feel like a
yeah,
lot of females can kind of relate to that. I mean, anyone, but just with kind of like having that overachiever
yes,
attitude and the go
yes,
getter, and
yes,
yeah, hearing that you're doing a good job, like you said, like
yeah,
that's what we thrive on or always have. You know, you want to make your parents happy, you want to be there for your siblings, and you want to do well in school and for your job. And so,
100%. And like when you realize, no, I'm actually just like, I'm worthy just as I am.
yeah,
Like, I'm worthy
so
just because
human.
yeah. And, and so that caused me to kind of dive deeper into other alternative modalities for like trying to get these stuck emotions out of my body. And I started to, do more acupuncture and, um, which is always like my number one tool that I tell people, in combination with this work that you're doing with me, you've got to do acupuncture. It's so powerful, and sound healing, and I dove into more energy work and other plant medicine and just other things to try to work this stuck stuff out of my body. And I started to realize we're we get the physical symptoms when we have these energetic blocks in the body. That's all that it comes down to. It's energetic blocks. We're full of toxins and we're undernourished. And if we're not living in our truth, if we're not following, right, our intuition and our gut and where it's calling us to go, we will stay sick. And yeah, and so that started a deeper healing of, healing childhood trauma. And, I'm still working through a lot of that. But then I started to, really think about the womb space and just how deeply rooted wounds in the womb are as women. And so, yeah, this is kind of a long story to basically say, like, um, I help people really get to the root cause of what's going on. And where I start women is with detoxification. And recently became a birth doula. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited about this because it's, another way of helping women step into their power and remember what our bodies are able to do. Our bodies are able to heal. Our bodies are able to birth babies. Like, this is how we were designed. And so it's like, how do we remove all the interference in the body that might be preventing these things from happening naturally? um, and we do that through education and detox. And so my biggest thing is helping women understand their bodies, because when we are empowered and understand our bodies and how to heal, it's unbelievable what can change. So yeah, that was a
Love
long
that.
answer, but yeah.
No, thank you. I love it. And I feel like there's so much to unpack there. But just thinking of, even the wounds in the womb and just how that goes back for generations of women. And like, it's not just us. And I know we've talked about this in our friend circle before too, about how I feel like our generation's finally like starting to unpack a lot of these things that have been passed down for a very long time, and choosing to empower ourselves and educate, because even related to like your menstrual cycle, those are just things that I feel like we didn't learn growing up. Even just basic things, we just don't learn that stuff.
Yep.
And you learn that, the normal trajectory is to go on birth control once you hit a certain age, especially if you have heavy bleeding or cramping or acne, that's just what you do. And then you might still have a lot of symptoms, but deal with it because everyone else does too. And I feel like even, menopausal women too, it's just, you're just kind of, at least for my patients, they come in and they're like, yeah, we're just told that we're just going to be, living with hot flashes and night sweats. And it's like, I, what I love about your mission and my mission is just like teaching people that there's another way, and that it doesn't have to be like this, and that we don't need to live in suffering. And
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people that I treat are primarily athletes, and so many women come in with, so many menstrual issues and hormonal things. And it's like, especially if you're an athlete from a young age, and, we're getting that pressure from coaches, teammates, family, whoever it is. And I feel like a lot of it just continues to get suppressed. And that's where, the emotions come into that too. And
Totally.
emotions play such a huge part in that. And there's no pill that can help unblock emotional blockages. And I think that's the hard part for people, is learning that.
Yeah, because it's not, the healing journey isn't like a take a pill and we're better. And we've been so conditioned to believe that, and I was this way, right? I was like throwing hundreds, thousands of dollars at random supplements and random things, always trying to like, oh, I have this symptom. Well, I'm gonna, right? Oh, I have hair loss. I'm gonna buy this shampoo
This
that helps.
external thing.
Yeah. And it's so much deeper than that. And what I always explain to my clients is like, the healing journey really is like this. It isn't linear, and it's also, when we start making changes, sometimes the icky stuff that we don't want to have to face has to come out before we start to feel better. And so when I talk about detoxification, a lot of people think, oh, well, detox, well, I don't drink, or I don't, right, I my liver, detoxes my body for me, things like that. But no, it's actually so much more than that. Like when I speak about detox, I really mean like mind, body, and spirit. And our world is inundated with toxins. And I can kind of go into that, but we have to keep our physical vessel clean. Like we have to clean our bodies so that we have access to more of our light, like to more of who we truly are. And then when you start really removing those roadblocks and you start to clean the body, the old emotions, right, the suppressed stuff starts to come up too. And so it really is like, when you start eating better and you start incorporating the right herbs and you start moving metals out of the body and parasites out of the body, old emotions, lower frequency things attach to parasites. They attach to metals. They're attached to those lower frequency things in the body. So then when you start to detox, you start to remove all of it. And yeah, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. Like, from the beginning of where I started to where I am now, like I'm an entirely different person. Have I been through challenges and crappy times? Yes. But like I'm so much happier now than I've ever been. And so it's like it's so worth it to face your stuff because it's it's all a journey of like us evolving and learning and becoming the best version of ourselves that we can be. And I believe that's why we're here on earth, is to
Yeah.
become the absolute best version of ourselves. And that doesn't always mean easy.
Right. Well, and like you said with evolving, I mean, that is human nature is to evolve. We've evolved over millions, many years, right? And we will continue to evolve. So why not make ourselves the best version that we can be so that then we can pass that down to future generations?
Yep.
And I think it's very scary for many people to be in their thoughts and in their feelings.
Hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of people will avoid it. And I mean, that's why I think people turn to substances, drugs, alcohol, because it's a great way to avoid what's going on, with emotions and in your body.
Hmm.
And even like my runners, a lot of people run with music, which I run with music too. It's great, but it's a great way to not be as connected with your body and what's going on.
Yeah.
And not to call out my sister here, but she, doesn't, what was it? She was talking about running, how she doesn't like to run, especially without music, because it's scary to be with your thoughts, and I think that goes for so many people is that is scary to do that work. So do you have many people that like, especially once they're getting into the work with you,
Hmm.
that, that stuff is coming out and like, how do you help those
Yeah.
people through that?
Oh, yeah. Good question. I thought of a lot of things that when you were just talking. So like I will say, for one, like this was me. This was me. Like I was so sick. I had had the back pain, had the gut issues, right? Had the constipation, all these things, the severe period pain because I didn't want to sit with the uncomfortableness of, right, of things that I needed to face and move out of my body.
So
And
it's
so
like period pain's uncomfortable, but there's a whole nother
there's a,
level of uncomfortable.
yes. And um and so I drank a lot. I drank a lot. And that was actually one of the hardest things for me to give up. And now I really never want alcohol just because I notice what it does to me now because I'm in such a different place. But that was I did a lot of things now that I see. Like I look back and like you said, I avoided. I didn't want to sit with my thoughts. I didn't want to sit with discomfort. I kept myself busy all the time. I couldn't even sit and read a book because I felt I always had to be productive. Right? Well, no, that's actually me like covering up something. I couldn't sit with myself. And it's been a journey of like learning how to love myself again too because there's a part in that where it's like for me there was like a lack of self-love, and that's still an ever evolving journey for me, is like learning how to truly love me. And so this does come up for a lot of women that I work with that, because I teach, for the listeners, I teach like group detoxification classes. I have one coming up in January actually, but it's a 10-week class that I go through and I teach you, okay, what are all of the different detox tools? What are the different biohacking tools, and how do we really eat to cleanse, and what are the herbs to take to start to rid the body of parasites? And so when I'm like guiding my clients through these classes, stuff will start to come up, right? Sometimes for some people, old traumas come up, or there'll be times where it's just like, they're like, I'm just feeling depressed and I don't know why. And it's sometimes we don't even have to know where it came from. We just have to like sit with it, allow it, and let it move out of the body, and to like have it be okay to not be okay. Like, it's okay to not be okay all the time. And we don't always have to put on a face or a mask. And I say this from experience because I've done this my whole life without even realizing it, right? Unconsciously. And and so there's, different tools that I guide people to. One thing that can be super helpful for people, especially for um, people like you and me that like work with a lot of clients, I always say, like, take a sea salt bath. Take a pound or 2 pounds, and that's a lot of sea salt, but a pound or 2 pounds of sea salt with lavender oil, and like let it clear your energy field, because sometimes like we're feeling off just because our auric field is just dirty, right? We've acquired, not only we're not only moving through our stuff, but then we become more sensitive to other people's stuff, and we're like taking on other people's stuff, and so that's like a cleanser. um Other stuff too, I always recommend, so there's something called emotion code. I don't know if you've heard of emotion code before, but it's like a form of, I don't know if I would say it's like energy work, but um, essentially, motion code practitioners are able to figure out where different emotions are stored in different parts of the body, and then actually help you move those out. So, like, I actually have an appointment every month with an emotion code practitioner, and she's able to tell me, oh, okay, you have shock, right? Shock is stuck in your pancreas. Or, oh, you have depression stuck in your right fallopian tube. And just like different energies and emotions, and then we move those out of the body. Because it, in traditional Chinese medicine, right? Like, we know that different glands and organs are tied to different emotions. And so we could be eating perfectly and doing all the right things and still not getting better, or still, kind of plateauing. And so have to address the emotions. And the other piece is meditation and spiritual practice really is so important. If I wouldn't have been meditating through like a lot of the life changes I've been through in the past year, and just like working through my trauma, gosh, I would not be where I am. Like, we have to allow ourselves to get quiet. Um, and we just have to sit with it. We have to let ourselves cry. We have to let that stuff move through. But yeah, I would say like the biggest one for me has been meditation. And I urge all my clients to meditate, even if it's starting with just 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, 'cause I think people get stuck on, oh, I have to have this long meditation practice, and if I don't
No.
do it every day, it's bad. It's like, no, like even if it's sitting in your car at the end of the day and just like instead
Mhm.
of scrolling on your phone, which I'm guilty of, like
Me too.
just sitting with yourself, and reflecting and just
Yep.
being
Yeah.
is so important.
And the other piece too is, many of us, specifically for women, we live in a world that praises masculinity.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like people don't. I
Yeah.
know it's a term we've been using a lot more with like being in your feminine versus masculine, but I think there's
Yeah.
negative connotations to both of
Yeah.
those.
And I'm still even learning how to do this myself, but it's because, and when I say praises masculinity, I mean we we feel guilty for not being, right, go go go, do do do, action action action. Like, the feminine, biologically, right, we are meant to sit back, receive, rest, nurture, like, just be. And so many of us have, right, hidden traumas, things in the body that have put us into protection mode, right, to protect and be, kind of always feeling like we got to be like doing the next thing. That's very masculine. And where I believe the world is headed, and where where relationships are really going to like actually thrive is when women can be in their feminine and men can be in their masculine, like how we were actually biologically designed. And so there, oh, there's a big eagle coming up.
Uh, it's a sign.
Uh-huh, always. Um, and basically I just feel there's a like a really big imbalance in the world right now. And um as females and as we think about healing, healing is very feminine. Healing requires us to rest. It requires us to just be and to receive. And when we're more in our feminine, we are just we take things slower, right? And we enjoy the pleasures of life, which so many times, right, we're like going so fast, doing, and
Trying
we
to prove ourselves.
yeah, like we aren't even really thinking about like our pleasure. And that goes into a whole other conversation of like some other of the work that I'm, kind of diving into, which is um like pleasure for women. And how many how many women, right, have gone like their entire life without having an orgasm, or just having no sex drive at all, or even just this, when we think about pleasure outside of that, it's like, do we sit and smell the flowers? Do we sit and allow ourselves to just like have a dark chocolate and just sit there and truly appreciate it, or get into the tub for an hour and not feel guilty, right? Take that time for ourselves. In order for us as females to heal, we have to we have to lean more into our feminine. Otherwise, our nervous systems are just, we're not going to heal. So, um, yeah, I don't want to get too off topic, but,
Oh,
but
thanks for explaining that. And I think just for people listening to, like, that doesn't mean, I mean, you and I are both entrepreneurs and business owners. And
oh,
like, it
yeah,
doesn't mean that, you're, like, I think this can just be taken a lot of different ways, but it
mm,
just means that it doesn't need to be the traditional 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. We're working at the same high speed at all times
right.
because women do live more on a cycle. Every month, our
Exactly.
cycle, our hormones change and are different. And women need more sleep than men. Like, it's just, that's, science and everything is also proving that.
Yep,
Things that we've already known, but are now, showing in studies. And I think it's okay to combine both of those things,
yep,
and do what feels good to you. And
totally.
on, the days that feel good to you, the times that feel good to you, and not feel, again, like you constantly have to be producing or be productive
Right.
in order to be worthy.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That was me. That
Yeah,
was me.
it's a lot of us.
Yep. Yep. So it's like now, I tell my clients like, take the time in the morning, like allow your like, sit there for 10, 15 minutes before you start your day, right? Like, right, like you said, it doesn't mean that we can't work and like have our own business and all of that. No, like I love that. Like, that's so fun and like
But it's work that brings you joy,
yeah.
versus the corporate life. And because I was
Yeah.
there when you were, debating, like, going
Yeah.
back and forth on whether you should leave or not. And they're
Yeah.
huge
Forgot about that.
decisions,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everyone has their own journey with this. And
Yep. Yep.
like you said, you've been on a big path these last couple of years. I mean, we all have.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's what brings you joy and what brings you pleasure, and like makes you feel best in your own body.
Yep.
And I think sometimes we just don't even take the time to figure out what that is because we're always doing things for others. And I think a lot of people
That's
can relate to that.
yep. That's another whole other thing. Yeah. Yep. So it's like it's also following your for so many years. I ignored my intuition, right? I reasoned with the voices, or the voice in my head that said, I don't think this is for you, or you might be happier over here, or, and so many of us do that. But one of our like greatest gifts to this world is like our intuition as women, right? We're all intuitive beings, men and women, but as women, we're really connected that way. And so when you're, feeling like, oh, this relationship I don't think is right for me anymore, or, oh, this friendship maybe is, you know, not serving me, or this job just isn't, I just know it's where I'm not supposed to be. Little things like that. That voice inside is like your higher soul, like trying to guide you to your best life. And so, the more we ignore that, the more out of balance we end up feeling. And over time, we end up feeling like, right, just something's missing, right? Something's missing in our life. And it's because we're not following our truth. Um, and so there's that piece too. But yeah, I always tell women just little practices that you can add in, especially when, like, back to that we were talking about, emotions start coming up, things that bring you joy, and things that can help you slow down, like a bath or a walk, or having chocolate, or sitting with a warm cup of cacao, or whatever that may be to you. For me, it's meditation, and it can just help bring you back to your center.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you work with males too with like detox, or are you primarily focused on women?
Yep, I help males detox too. My belief is everybody in the world needs to detox.
Because what do you see
And
coming up with males then? I'm just curious.
well, for males right now, um, low testosterone, and gut issues. And what I'm seeing in a lot of couples, right, is a lot of unexplained infertility, or couples struggling to get pregnant. And this is part of like why I've, kind of, I guess it's not even a choice. It's just where like the universe is guiding me of like really getting into the birth space and the fertility space, and teaching couples how to detox, right? How do we bring in the healthiest baby possible? How do we get ourselves right to our best place possible so that we then can bring in the healthiest child? And how do we how do we cleanse, how do we eat, and then teaching mom how to eat for proper nourishment for baby development, right? Like there's so many things. And yeah, I help men all the time, because in my opinion we just don't have a choice on whether or not we detox. um, our symptoms are just going to kind of continue to linger, or like start to get better, then not, or start to get better and then we plateau if we don't address toxins. And what I'm seeing in men and women right now, and I can kind of go into the gut injury thing, gut health, is just right. You almost think about everyone, there's some sort of digestive issue going on. And and we think about, okay, well, the gut, I would like to say it's the first brain. Our brain isn't our first brain. Our gut is our first brain. It's where 80% of our hormones are made, right? You think about all the dopamine, the serotonin, melatonin, like all of this is created in your gut. And we're not only dealing with a bunch of digestive issues and physical symptoms, but we're seeing, like I said, huge spikes in infertility, inflammation, anxiety. Like we're depressed. A lot of us are like, right, high functioning depressed. I was. I didn't even know it. And the reason for this is because we're lacking healthy gut bacteria, and the gut is damaged, right? Many of us are walking around with leaky gut. And Part of the reason for that, and now I'm happy that like this is there's more conversations being had about this, like at a higher level. Like there's finally attention being brought to our food system. But when glyphosate was introduced in the 80s, which is the main ingredient in Roundup, we started to see, if we look back from the 80s until now, like what we're seeing as far as like disease, you think about autoimmune, cancer, autism, all of this has gone dramatically up. And I believe it's because of this chemical that was introduced into our existence that sprayed on all of the food here in the United States. And yeah, so for those of you that don't know, glyphosate is a pesticide, and it was introduced to right to keep weeds away, right to keep you know, I think that was the reason it was introduced. But what they really didn't think about is like what this is actually doing to the plants and how meaningful of a relationship plants and humans, right? Food and humans have. Like we are what we eat. So if we're eating stressed out plants, well, then we're going to be stressed out. We just simply don't have the nutrition that we used to. So when glyphosate is sprayed on the crops, it basically blocks something called the shikimate pathway. And the shikimate pathway in plants is how plants fold their proteins. It's how plants create their micronutrients, right? The things that we have to get from food. And if it's destroyed the plant's abilities to make amino acids and micronutrients, well, then when we're eating an apple, even though it looks perfect, right? It's, we're basically not even getting anything from it. And so, on a cellular level, we are stressed out and starving. And that's also why we have a ton of cravings. And, I used to like eat a huge dinner and then I'd be like in the fridge, like still like grabbing for stuff. And I didn't even know why. It was like an unconscious thing. And it's because on a cellular level, I was starving. On a cellular level, I was inflamed. And the other thing about glyphosate is it tears holes in the tight junctions of the gut. And so we're walking around with leaky gut. It's patented as an oral antibiotic. So, right, you think about what antibiotics do. It's wiping everything. And we're made of more bacteria than we are cells. So the body is struggling to heal right now on like a collective level because of we're malnourished. Our food is not what it used to be, even if we're eating right all the things. And so yeah, that's why I've brought in certain tools into my practice that I know you've also brought in that like deeply nourish on the cellular level. Like we have to look at the way things are farmed. We have to we really have to start making relationships with local farmers, right? Get your meat from a regenerative farm. Get your vegetables from a regenerative farm. Like start to really know where your food comes from.
And the soil that it's grown in. So I think
Yes.
like that's the biggest piece I've learned in the last few
Yes.
years is if it's growing, even if you're not using chemicals to grow your food,
Hmm.
how's your soil?
Yep.
If these crops just keep getting grown in the same soil year after year, just constantly, and it's like it was never like that before. Like it just that's not how plants were meant to grow. So then we have, yeah, the mineral depletion, the nutrient
Uh-huh.
depletion.
Hmm.
And it's like it makes sense like when you think about it, but like you said, like in a grocery store, you see this big juicy red apple, and it's like, oh, this must be good.
Uh-huh.
When really, it was grown in you know topsoil that was completely like nutrient deprived and
A
grown
thousand percent.
quickly, probably.
Or picked unripe. Like that's the other thing is like many. It's like you think about pulling a baby away from, right, the placenta too early. Like that's what we're doing with plants. And so a lot of it is important to like also, yeah, like eat in season, try to get as much as you can from like where you live, because a lot of the things in the store, right, is coming from different countries. Things are picked unripe so that by the time it's in the grocery store, it's not overripe, or it doesn't have to be thrown. And the 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 nutrient value is so much lower at that point. So yeah, whenever I'm working with my clients, it's not only a process of, okay, let's get the parasites out, let's get the metals out, let's, you know, eat to decrease inflammation, but it's also how can we like flood the body with nutrients and minerals? Because when your body has the proper amount of nutrients and minerals, even if you don't change anything else, sometimes symptoms start to go away. Like sometimes it's only malnourishment.
Right.
So it's like it's that important. And when we actually are nourished on a cellular level, the body finally starts to feel safe again. So, and that I believe is really the key to healing. Is like, how do we make the body feel safe again? And when the body feels safe, that's when we drop inflammation. That's when weight starts to leave. Like, and there's just, yeah, it's even just like the weight loss thing, and the Ozempic is like a big thing that is a just apparently more common than I really realized, and I'm starting to get guidance on like what this is really doing to the body and the minds of,
And kids are getting it now.
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's I say excess weight on the body is nothing more than excess waste. So once you just start nourishing the body properly and getting the gunk out, getting the pesticides out, right? Getting the heavy metals out. I mean, I was just talking about this the other day with someone. If you remember like being in school and just like not being able to like sit still, or like you just couldn't grasp a subject, or you felt like certain things were like hard, right? And it just you felt kind of slow at times. It's not that we're just slow people. Okay, we're like divine beings. We are intelligent, intelligent, intelligent. That's not the problem. The problem is the stuff in the way. So, I'm looking at children nowadays, right? They're being diagnosed with ADD and all the, right, all these things, when if they just changed their diet, if we just didn't have all the crap in our food and all the dyes and all the pesticides and the heavy metals, right? So many of us have, underlying like mercury poisoning and we don't even know it.
And the plastics.
Yeah. And yeah, the plastics, like, and this is what's causing us to feel slow. This is what's causing us to have brain fog, to have slow digestion, to there's so many things that can be solved just by simply eating real food, knowing, right, of course making sure that it's organic, or even better if it's coming from a local farm, and getting getting the toxins out. We are just the body is overloaded with toxins even if we are doing everything right. um and so yeah,
Well,
it's
and the other thing too is I get a lot of people that talk about cost, and it's so much more expensive to buy organic foods, things like that.
yeah.
But, Jacob and I went to the St. Paul Farmers Market this summer, and he was like, I think we were getting like a thing of carrots or something, and it was like $2 for like this huge thing of like organic carrots. And he's like, seriously? $2? And just like everything we were getting, he's like, are you sure it's like not more than that? So in Costco, like there's, yes, it can be more expensive, but do you want to pay now or pay later? And I think going to your local farms and, getting in a co-op, or,
Yep.
becoming friends with the farmer, like you said, and like sharing an animal with others. Like you can make it more cost effective than going to your conventional grocery store.
Totally. And I will say like Costco is the largest organic retailer out there. So, yes, the organic label doesn't always mean everything, right? Because again, like we were talking about it, the soil matters, all that matters, but you can really get stuff affordably at Costco. Like the, their some of their organic produce is like far better in price than anywhere else that I can find. And you can find really clean stuff at Costco for really good prices. And
Even their frozen berries. I mean, I
oh my
tell people
gosh.
buy
Yeah.
the frozen organic berries and fruits and veggies because they're way
Yes.
cheaper. They last longer, so you don't have the waste of it.
Yep.
And then I'll warm it up and put it, in my bowl of yogurt or something like that. You know,
Yeah.
same thing.
Yep. Oh yeah, their organic fruit, like I stock up every single week because I tell people I'm like in the morning I make my $30 smoothie, which is just it's ridiculous. It's not actually $30, but it's like I put a lot of stuff in my morning smoothie because I'm doing everything I can to like work this certain stuff out of my body. And like now I know what it feels like to feel clean, to feel like vibrant, to feel nourished. Um, and so there are so many tools that we have at our fingertips. And although, a lot of it, right, comes out of pocket versus like being able to get a pharmaceutical and have it come out of insurance or whatever, it's so worth it. And you do overall pay less at the end. Like, it is so worth it to feel your best self and to have energy and to sleep well. And um, when you start to heal on a deep, deep level by doing this sort of work, right? Like by going to acupuncture, by detoxing, by exercising, like, and moving your body, you step into your purpose, your God given life purpose. And your life just gets better and better if you follow the call. And and it does require like facing your stuff, but there's nothing better than being able to like step into who you like really are and remember who you are. Yeah.
I love it. I think that's a good place to.
Good place to
That's a
end.
lot to sit with right there. And on that note, no, I love it. And um, kind of something that Jacob and I are starting now, sort of on these lines of becoming, who you are and everything. But we're starting to ask everyone, what's your we get to do this moment? You've done so many incredible things, especially in the last few years, but over your
Yeah.
entire life. And I'd love to know, like, what's one moment or, time that comes to your mind when you kind of just looked around and you're like, wow, like I get to do this. Like how
Mm.
lucky and how grateful am I?
I have a couple thoughts that come to mind. So like just an experience, I guess, at first comes to my mind, like when I went on this big long hike and I hiked, it was right, it was like a super hard uphill hike. But at the top of the hike, it was in Montana and it was like this lake that was surrounded by mountains. And I just like couldn't believe my eyes. And like that moment right there is like I get to do this, right? Like I get like my body is healthy enough, right? That I was able to like how grateful that I was able to actually like climb up this mountain and see this. Like I get to do this. Oh my gosh. Right? Like, and it was just like, yeah, in that moment, I just remember like looking around and like it makes me tear up, but it's just like,
I'm getting chills.
yeah, like just like
'Cause I know
that is
that feeling.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was just, yeah, it was amazing. So definitely that, like, I get to do this. And the other piece now is like supporting women through birth. Oh my gosh, I get to do this.
Yeah.
Like,
It's pretty incredible.
and just thinking about a woman's body, like how miraculous. Like, we create life. Like, as women, we get to do this.
Yeah.
How beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Thanks for sharing. I think, again, it's just take the time to slow down and just truly appreciate life because not to get all, esoteric on this, but it's like, it's pretty incredible that we're here on this earth and in this perfect climate on this perfect planet to be able to live and be here for, you know, 80 to 100 years. Like, it's pretty miraculous.
It
And
is.
it's something that I don't think we should take for granted. So,
Mm, I love that. I totally agree.
thanks so much for joining me today, Anna.
Thank
And
you.
Jake will be back on again next week for listeners, but I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to be with you today. And hopefully, well, I'm sure people took away many things from this conversation. Every time I talk to you, I come away with a lot and just a lot to think about. So, if you guys have any comments or questions for me, feel free to drop those in the comment box or email us. And how can listeners follow up with you, Anna? And how can, like, if people are interested in detox and they talked about a program in January, where can they
Yeah.
find you?
Yeah. So you'll see all of my detox information. And then also, if you're pregnant or know someone who's pregnant who needs a birth doula, all of this information is on my website, regenerativebirth.com. So regenerativebirth.com is where I have like everything. And then I like to do a lot of free education on Instagram. So a lot of the things I've posted so far have been very detox focused, teaching you about your body. And now it's going to be shifting into some more stuff about fertility and the birth space. So
I love it. And we'll drop those links into the comment section too, so people can see those things.
perfect.
But thanks for everything you do and for sharing your work, Anna. Really appreciate you.
Thank
So that we
you.
get to do this podcast. See you guys next week. Bye, Anna.
Bye.